Hello, and today we have the Carnivore Bar with Phillip Meece and Courtney Meece. Hi, guys.
Hey,
Hey,
So great to have you here. And it's kind of funny that we're doing a Zoom meeting because we're 3 hours away from each other.
yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, so you guys are in a little bit north western Missouri, and I'm in southeastern Missouri. But I met you know you guys and met I got to tour the old factory years ago, and I just wanted to share with everybody how amazing you are. Like, and I mean, Philip, you're great, but also with Courtney, like, it's like you multiplied into like an even greater person whenever you included Courtney.
Yeah, I mean, she really helped get the business established in 2020. Like, it wouldn't have happened without Courtney, as addition to the team. Um, Came to us again like divine providence, just exactly when we needed. And I don't know, what was your first take of the Carnivore Bar when you joined us?
it was crazy. I was so impressed how much was being done by so few people, to be honest. When I first toured the factory and I was like, this is it. Like you guys hand blow up the packing bubbles to put in the boxes, just everything done by hand by such few people. I was really impressed and kind of just threw myself fully into it and had an amazing time, if I'm being honest. It was crazy. It was COVID 2020. So many things were unsure, but I felt like I was starting this new life and it was just such a blessing. I had an amazing time and still am, to be honest.
Yep.
Yeah, and I couldn't really wrap my mind around it all whenever I first heard about pemmican. And until I went into the factory, and I'm so grateful that Philip let me have that hands-on because I'm not a learn it by listening kind of a person. I'm more of a like, I need to be there. And thankfully, your one guy was there doing the bars, and I was able to watch, the process from start to finish. Well, not finish, but
Yeah.
watch the process. And today I got it was like Christmas. I got this my box of bars
Nice.
from you guys.
Looks like
And
you already ate one too.
I didn't even leave the post office parking lot.
Nice.
I ripped that package open and I ate one immediately. It was just like, because for me, Philip, I'm not a normal person. I
Mhm.
can't go have like, oh, it's Friday. I'm going to go indulge in this, or I'm going to go indulge in that. This is my indulgence. This is
Yeah.
my happy place.
You want to go for sushi or Mexican with the coworkers. It's like, well, it starts this cascade of interesting problems for carnivores, and it depends on how strict you are. But like, even if you order just meat cooked in butter, um, the reliability of that is just so iffy. You
And
know,
it's like playing Russian roulette.
Mhm.
you never know if they're really going to cook it in butter, if they're going to clean the grill before, and you feel bad asking, but like then you taste it and you can taste that soy oil and you're like, I'm gonna feel sick later. I'm gonna feel terrible.
4 days. I could
Yeah.
have one bad meal, and for 4 to 7 days, I have a headache.
Yeah. And so it's just for me, like pemmican was a necessity. Like the carnivore diet is a joke without pemmican. And I spent all my weekends making pemmican for my own self so that I could go out in the world, because I'm tired of that Russian roulette game and not having enough fat. Like when I would make jerky, I can dip it in butter at home. And then that makes it, it's like, okay, jerky dipped in butter. That works. That's a snack or, meal if I'm really feeling lazy and forgot to thaw something. But if I'm traveling, carrying around like the butter and doing all like we're taking bites of butter. I know some people are hardcore, but I just could never do that. But pemmican was the solution for me because if I eat just fat, like globs of it or drink it, like it upsets my stomach. But pemmican is high fat, but it's mixed in with the dried meat, and so it doesn't mess me up, but it gives me the energy I need. So it's like, okay, so pemmican works, everything else doesn't. Can't be without this. I'm making it every single weekend for myself. It's like, well, maybe if I did a Kickstarter, more people would want this thing. Because I found like we eat it every day, right? Like,
I eat the honey bars now, so
yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay.
And
I can't do
here's my bar. It's just, I never would have thought in a million years that you could take something like ground beef and make it shelf sustainable. And I think that is what is so exciting for me to know that going into, who knows what's coming next.
yeah.
We're gonna have this to be able to, if the electricity goes out, if we're not able to preserve our food, it's preserved, it's shelf stable.
Yeah, that was another thing. I was also a soldier. In 2012, I was in Afghanistan and I couldn't get healthy food to the battlefield. I bought my own very clean jerky, but because it was really clean jerky, it didn't have any preservatives in it. So the heat contractions through the desert made like condensation form on I think I've told you this story before.
No, but say it again, please.
So the condensation formed on the outside of the bag because there's a pretty decent amount of moisture in jerky. If there were no moisture, you wouldn't be able to bite through it. So the way that pemmican avoids this problem, but that moisture is necessary so it's chewy and not unchewable. So the moisture that has to be in there is collecting on the outside of the bag in these heat contractions, and it molded and soured the entire bag on the trip to Afghanistan. So I was devastated. I've just spent, my own money, as a soldier trying to get healthy food there, and it didn't work. And so there's granola, there's sugar, there's caffeine, there's nicotine, as much as I could possibly want. But nothing wholesome. And I was like, well, when I get back, I'm going to do something about this. But I didn't understand about like what parts of the diet were doing what, like how much like berries or antioxidants or green leafy vegetables you need to be healthy. So I was like, well, it'd be great if we had a meat MRE, but then I'd be missing all this other stuff. So I let that sit on a shelf. I let that concept sit on the shelf for a few years, doing all this health hacking, couldn't figure out what was wrong, like pounding green leafy vegetables, trying to be well. And the more I went towards the paleo green leafy vegetables and lean meat, the more wrecked I felt. And so keto, I felt a little better, but I was still eating like lots of fat and lots of exotic avocado, coconut, cacao, like all these exotic tropical fats because they're really good for you. And they're good for you in as much as they mimic saturated animal fat. So, it's like, okay, well, what's wrong? Something's still wrong. And I don't know if I told you this part of the story, but my cousin got really sick. And I was drinking just a little bit of alcohol, paleo, keto, alcohol, kind of, mix and match, not very strict, not very focused, not getting the results I wanted. I suspected that the alcohol was the thing holding me back. My cousin gets deathly ill. She needs a living donor. So I volunteer for that, go off alcohol. So I'm eating leafy greens and grass-fed, grass-finished meat, eating the healthiest diet I can. Something's still wrong. I've eliminated the alcohol. I gave my liver. I'm healthiest I've been in a while. Something is still very wrong with my health. So then I'm like primed. And this is 2018. I hear the story, Joe Rogan, of Jordan Peterson describing Michaela's health journey. What was that? That was July. Was it 3rd?
Yeah.
Yeah. July. I think it happened on July 2nd. And I started my carnivore journey July 3rd, 2018, which just so happens to be
Our wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unplanned.
Unplanned. Completely unplanned. So
but that's why I remember his carnivore anniversary.
That's great.
But that's when I realized that, I had removed alcohol. I had gone sober for 2 years, gave part of my liver grew back, amazing health journey, green leafy vegetables and meat. Green leafy vegetables might be causing me a problem. I stopped it, lost 40 pounds, instantly felt amazing. And I was like, okay, I'm never going back. And I think it was like the next month, my folks are into CrossFit. So they invited me to go to the CrossFit Games in Madison. So I went, but I had to make pemmican because I didn't trust, and they're into paleo, they're into healthy food, but I couldn't find something high fat animal there. I found lots of like sweet potatoes and lean meat. And then there were cheese curds because it's Wisconsin, but they were battered. I'm like, no, I can't do that. I'm not going to feel sick all weekend long. Yeah. So I brought pemmican and I made it myself, and it took forever. I spent like hundreds of dollars of equipment on drying equipment, on bowls, rendering low and slow, and trying to figure out the mix of pemmican. It took me forever. So I lost a couple of weekends before that. I'm a new carnivore. I'm committed to this. I'm going to do this the right way. And it was like, that made my weekend. That experience made my weekend with the pemmican. And so I was like, okay, roger that. I can never be without it. So then October 2018, I kind of figured out like, oh, I bet I could make this better. I bet I could make lots and lots of improvements. And there's no one else doing this. It's the height of the carnivore movement. So I launched the Kickstarter with the Carnivore Con in 2019 at Amber O'Hearn's first ever carnivore conference. So that was a resounding success. But then no sooner than we get the product developed, which was a lot more intense than I had imagined, then the pandemic hit. And so then all of a sudden I was really popular, and people were a little bit panicked, and they were asking for a bunch of pemmican, but it takes like millions of dollars to create a USDA facility correctly. It takes 5 to 10 years to build. It's like doing all this stuff. There are convenient and easy ways to make food, none of which I can use because they involve the adding of preservatives, adding chemicals, plastics, all kinds of different things that would touch the meat or it would contaminate the meat, or just kind of this disregard for food quality and nutrition. Leave things out sitting in open air, oxidizing and becoming rancid. It's like, no. It's like, so we had to do it all ourselves. That was part of what impressed both of you guys when we came to sell the facility. It's like everything is meticulously controlled, goes into stainless steel containers, silicone seal. I'd love to show more people, but it's kind of one of those trade secret kind of things.
Yeah.
If I want big investors, I kind of have to hold some of the process back because the recipe is beef tallow salt. So I've already given the recipe away because there's nothing in it except for beef and a little bit of salt, and we'll hold the salt if you want. So it's like that. It has to be, the process is the trade secret if I ever want to be investable. And given how much I need, it puts us in this like crazy paradox of like, how do we make this the right way for the people who don't want to be poisoned by their food, but who can invest in animal agriculture and making animal agriculture shelf stable,
and who want to invest in their health.
right?
Like, I know that I I can't go the $3.99 ribeye route. Like I know where that ends up. That ends up with me sick. And so my health is so important that I'm willing to invest everything that I have into that because I want to live.
Didn't you say you had neuropathy in your right arm return from eating grain-fed animals?
Both arms.
Oh,
Yeah. It and
that's
then
hor
my duet.
that's horrifying.
Oh, it was absolutely horrifying. And my mental illness came back. I was in the fetal position for 3 hours, just sobbing, just hysterically. And I was eating nothing but ribeyes, nothing but ribeyes.
Yep.
So there was no other possible problem. And I hadn't experienced the mental illness or the autoimmune response for at that point, I think it had been a year. It had been a year. And so, and then as soon as I stopped eating that grocery store, the $3.99 ribeye, I went to grass-fed, grass-finished beef and beef fat. And it was gone within, I would say within 7 days, it was completely gone. But I noticed it immediately.
That story really impacted us. Like that was another one of the reasons that we discontinued our grain-fed beef line. With initially people asked us for the cheaper beef, but like a couple of different issues formulated all at the same time. And one of them was your story, because I was like, well, I don't know what it would be, because the hormones, they test rigorously for hormones in grain-fed beef. They're supposed to be like less than 9 nanograms, which is infinitesimally small. You get 10,000 times more estrogen or, endocrine disrupting hormones from like eating a soy milk, right?
Tofu. Yeah.
Tofu, so it shouldn't be the hormones, but then you got to think, is it glyphosate metabolites? Is it, who knows,
Some
nerve?
preservative on it.
Yeah, because it's such industrial processing, it's hard to know what they've done. We had their tallow was difficult to work with because it was bleached and it was deodorized. So what had happened is that they heated it, superheated it, then super filtered it, then deodorized it. So they make it more oxidized than it needs to be, to make it like this alabaster white, perfect, and a color. And it's like, I'm not sure. Like I'm not sure that I want you to do that to my tallow. And so we ended up doing all of our tallow from scratch using grass-fed animals, just because we get like a hunk of fat. And so then we have to process it, and it takes immense amounts of time, but like the product ends up tasting better and it looks better. And I feel like I understand what's happening to it chemically a lot more comprehensively than I did getting a giant cube in blue plastic. That's what the industrial grain-fed tallow came in, and I could get it way cheaper. But another component is your story, the weirdness of the tallow, and then the third one was 60% yield. We lost 40% of the yield of grain-fed meat because it was just water weight. So there was a huge difference in the water weight of these grain-fed bloated animals than there was the actual muscle mass and muscle density of the grass-finished animal. So it's like, well, people are always comparing the cost, but when you dry it, when you remove the water, you realize you're actually getting a lot more meat, a lot more amino acids and proteins from, or bioavailable protein from the grass-fed animal. And that's another thing with, that's just meat to meat. But if you compare it to like plant protein, it is astronomically more bioavailable, because the way they've measured this chemistry is like they're measuring nitrogen. They're not measuring usable amino acids for human beings and their digestion, and so it becomes this kind of nonsense where we have these measures of what we think the body needs, the RDA, and we have these measures of what we think matters as far as nutrition. But like, we haven't done some of the basic eighth grade level chemistry on it. It's like, how much of that nitrogen is unchanged when it passes through the human body? It's like, well, most of it goes into the toilet if it's plant-based protein. You're able to convert some of it, but the vast majority of it is just wasted. And so if you're looking at grass and grain, you're like, well, if I'm getting 40% less, but it only costs 20% less because the price of grains has increased, it's like, okay, well, now it's a better deal if I get grass-fed. It's a bigger sticker price, but I'm getting more nutrition per dollar. And so then it's kind of a mind warp because you have to think about it so differently.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a shock for us. We didn't anticipate. We're like, okay, we'll offer commodity beef, we'll offer a cheaper option. And then we just saw that difference collapse because of all that water weight. And there's sketchy stuff about their fat. And your story made me concerned that there's something that we don't know how to measure for that's in commodity beef that might be inflaming people. No judgment on anyone who eats the meat they can afford. I think that's great, and you should do what works for you. But anecdotal stories of people having reactions, they start to perk my ears up because we're trying to create a product that is 100% safe, that you can count on in an emergency, like you were saying with the power going out.
Yeah, and not playing Russian roulette. Like, I know that I can eat this and I will not have a reaction. And I enjoy it. Like, I love so much that the texture, I can't get it any other way. And so I think that's why it's such a treat for me, is because it's so unique. It's something that I can't experience in my day-to-day life or my day-to-day eating, unless I was Phillip and I was in my kitchen, like slaving for hours. And I'm
Yeah,
not committed.
and getting the crunch, getting the meat that way. I threw away like thousands of carnivore bars trying to do that. Like, I threw away tons of tallow that got a little too hot, that got scorched. You have like $600 worth of tallow in front of you, and it just like, it's fine 1 minute, and then 10 minutes later, it's just a little too brown. It's scorched, and it'll taste bad. So I've done it both ways. I've thrown it away out of discipline, and then I've tried to make bars, and it's like, well, maybe these are going to be internal bars. Like, we won't sell these, but we'll eat them ourselves. But it just tastes like somebody dipped a burger patty in like coals and ash from your fire. It just tastes off. And like, then the fat started to get creamy in this weird way. And it's like, no, it's rancid. It is not good anymore. And so those experiments have been so painful. If you're going to make pemmican yourself, you need to factor in those costs of the R&D, the research and development. Like, one of the reasons I tried to scale up and make a pemmican company is to get people back their weekends if they can afford it. And then if not, then to be an emergency food that you can count on, because there's so much that goes into it. It's not just the making sure you don't overheat the fat, making sure that you get the protein dry enough so that it doesn't mold, making sure that it's sealed in a wrapper so that it actually stands, the test of time. Ziploc is actually permeable. All plastic film is permeable to oxygen and moisture. It's like, so if you were storing this away for years, like, it needs to be in a film that's capable of keeping those stuff out. Otherwise, the nutrition is degrading. And so I just looked at all of that and doing it at home, and I was like, well, maybe there's a business opportunity here, because people really need this. It's the liability. If the power goes out and we all have deep freezers full of meat and it thaws, it's like, there's no plan B. Or if there's a fire or a hurricane and you have to leave your home, it's like, do you fill a backpack full of frozen meat and like try? I mean, yes. I mean, the answer is yes. You got to do what you got to do, but it's a really like scary place to be, to not have pemmican that you can count on, that's done right, at scale. And so I've been trying to scale up, offering honey to people who eat more expansively, and try to, also maintain this strict bar that I need. You do the honeys.
Yeah.
You do the unsalted honey, which
has less fat and a little more honey.
Because she has a hard time absorbing the fat. And so that's my rationale for accepting that, is like, not everybody can absorb fat in the same way. So if you're going to get your energy from some kind of animal source, like, that makes sense. It's not going to be inflammatory like vegetables would be,
Yeah,
so
and I really liked that whenever I did, because you sent me a honey bar and I tried it. And number one, it was just like a party in my mouth. Like, it was so fun. Like, it felt like a carnivore graham cracker because of the
Yeah.
crunch and the and then the sweetness, because I don't have any sweet taste in my mouth normally at all. But it wasn't too much. It wasn't just like, bleh. I finished the whole bar in, and normally I would be like, okay, let me take a bite and I'll set it back there for an hour or two. But it didn't cause a reaction in me.
That's
And I
great.
think that was what's so fun, is that I'm able to like experiment or play safely with like the bumpers on the bowling lane. Like, I get to
Right.
play safely.
And we were saying just real briefly before you hit record that we're trying to add more SKUs to be more experimentative. We're going to try to offer a honey barbecue, and then we're going to offer a lamb. So in the same kind of rationale and reasoning, and we're announcing this is the first time we've ever mentioned it.
I'm so excited.
So we're going to do low FODMAP. So some people who can eat more expansive, let's not go crazy. Let's try one variable at a time. Like capsaicin with chili doesn't seem to be that irritating to some. There's irritation in your mouth, the spice, but it doesn't seem that bad as like garlic and onion, which have sulfide compounds in them. That
I react to those immediately.
right?
Yeah.
Michael Anthony was telling me a fun story about like eating a burger that had mixed in onions into the burger itself. He said, with no toppings, no vegetables, cook it in butter, but like it was actually in the patty itself. And so it's just like, you try to eat out, you try to give grill instructions, and then there's onions in there. And so then he got deathly ill from that experience. And I was like, yeah, exactly. That is the kind of thing that goes right over the head of the person you're ordering this from. It's like, oh yeah, it's aromatic. It gives some more flavor. It's like, if we're going to experiment, we need to be methodical and careful. Let one thing at a time. Let's identify, and we want to be offering products that more people want. So we're going to do low FODMAP, no garlic, no onion, honey barbecue.
I love it.
For kids, for people who aren't as sensitive as we are, who can handle that stuff, like, okay, we're going to try to cater to the more expansive carnivore movement. But then on the other end, we have people who are so sensitive of histamine that they can't eat the grass finished beef. So the grass finished beef is unique in the fact that it has, this ancestral nutrition, and it's avoiding maybe some of the preservatives or different like things, pesticides that people spray. However, in order to compete in a market that offers grain finished beef, oftentimes grass finished suppliers, even the very, very best, it's an industry standard to dry age it.
Yeah.
So, and they do that with the whole cow intact. I can't like hack off the bits that I need. So until I raise my own cattle, which I'd love to do someday, we can't get beef that isn't dry aged unless we find something either grain finished or we find a specialty vendor who does that. So if we offer lamb, which is going to be very expensive, this could be for emergencies for people who are histamine sensitive. So there's almost no histamine in lamb. And the way that we're going to prepare it is we're going to be exactly as disciplined as we are with the beef. And we'll make lamb pemmican. Now, it's not a whole grown animal, and it should taste delicious. but I just want to prepare people. The sticker price is going to be it's going to be shocking for lamb. I think the wholesale price is $10 a pound for lamb right now, and because it just went up. And that brings me to the other reason that we reached out is that our prices just jumped 60%. Our costs for beef. So
For a good reason. I think what people don't understand is that it's not just Phillip going, I think we're gonna up the cost this year. There's a reason. So that's why I wanted you to talk about this.
Right. There's no yacht. There's no fancy digs that we are doing. We,
There's
this is
no
a labor
yacht.
of love for us. Like this is a passion and we eat the thing.
Yeah.
We're own customers. So we're trying to survive in a hostile food environment. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to end up raising our prices to you guys by 30%. So our meat costs have gone up 60. And we'll give an email explaining all the breakdown, but we're just going to figure out a way to meet in the middle. But like people have already complained that our product is too expensive or that we're profiteering, and it's like we're the only people in the world who do this, especially at scale. And there's a reason. It's because it's not profitable. It doesn't make us any money. It's not desiccated organs and pills. Those are highly profitable. That's like a real like grown-up business kind of plan. Carnivore Bar is a passion project from a soldier who wants to survive in battlefield situations. Like if you're looking at things from a soldier's perspective, not a general or politicians, they want the minimum priced bullet to kill the enemy. They're trying to shave a few cents off that. You ask a soldier what kind of bullet they want. They're gonna like, this is a $90 bullet. It works every time. I squeeze the trigger, the mission is accomplished. I don't want to mess around with my life. And so like there's a whole different philosophy. It's not necessarily the best business sense, but if your life depends on it, I want it done the right way. And that costs a ton. And 2023 is going to be much worse than the preceding 2 years. So since the pandemic, we've had people wait till there's a panic and then mass order us. It's like, we will not have the supply for that. If you think ahead, you will have carnivore bars, but otherwise you're going to have to make them yourself. And it's not just something you can make in your kitchen as is. You need equipment to break it down, and then it's not going to be dry enough, and then you're not going to have the right material to seal it in. Commercially, you're going to need something like Mylar, something that's impregnated with metal to keep the moisture and oxygen out of it. Yeah, exactly. You're going to need something pretty advanced. Otherwise, it's going to rancidify. And if you don't get it dry enough, how do you measure how dry is dry? It's like, well, it depends on how many preservatives you want to add. So if
that's what you do, is you do the research and development. Phillip, I would have lost my freaking mind to have to like be in the kitchen and figure out all this scientific stuff. Like there's no way. And that's why whenever I first walked into your factory and had this conversation with you and then saw the process of what you guys do, I was like, oh, like it was just like it all made sense to me that literally this is a gift to the world. Like
I'm glad you see
really
it that
is.
way.
It is.
To be fair, I've lost my mind a few times. Courtney can attest.
Yeah, I leave the science to him though. Like I'll deal with him losing his mind because I don't have to do the science that I don't understand either.
But she basically runs the business. If you ever had a question or ever needed a refund or ever wanted a box resend, Courtney has answered your email personally. So
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, I noticed a big difference just in like response whenever Courtney came on board. I was just like, oh, I was like, this is awesome. Well, because, and you were just doing your best, you were doing everything. But so, yeah, Courtney's an amazing addition to the team.
Well, thanks, guys. Thank you.
So going forward, I know that you have this vision of it being something that can be used in military. Have you had any more conversations about that? Is it on the shelf, the idea?
That's a great question. I think the next step is to survive the coming recession. So don't go out of business. That's step number one. Because with the meat prices going up the way they are, it's not just meat prices. Like we have held our tongue this whole year as prices for engineering, plumbing, electricians, steel fabrication, everything has been going up and up and up and up and up without any abatement. And it's not really inflation. It's more like a skill gap, a supply chain problem where all the people who've done those jobs, those thankless jobs that make the electricity go and heat our homes, no one's going into those jobs. Everyone is going to work at tech jobs. And now it's through Zoom and all these other digital assets, but nobody is going to learn electrical engineering. No one is going to plumbing or those kind of things. And so there is a really big shortage of that. There is such a shortage and knowledge gap that you get, those costs are just going up and up and up because there's nobody in the pipeline learning those skills and trades. Because we've kind of denigrated, oh, that's a factory job, or oh, that's a low class job. I don't want to do that. And it's like, well, everyone who has degrees and is going to tech, now they're all laying those things off. So there's a big, I'm a huge fan of Mike Rowe, if you haven't got that gist, but like he's the dirty jobs guy. And he talks about this epidemic of not wanting to work. But it's not that they're lazy. It's just that we have given social clout to technology jobs, and then we have denigrated unfairly these blue collar jobs that are vital to our infrastructure, and we've somehow made it dishonorable to do these jobs, and that's kind of a cultural problem. It's not a problem of the kids responding to the culture that they live in. It's a problem of everyone, saying that there's something off about those kind of jobs, the kind of jobs that you get in Southeast Missouri. It's like where we're from, because I'm from down the street in Jackson, Missouri. And there's nothing wrong with that. The salt of the earth kind of people, need to be respected. And from a carnivore point of view, there's no one who's more important to this whole shebang than ranchers, who make the food that has alleviated our symptoms. And they're out there in the rain and the cold and the frost right now, making sure that there's not a calf that got lost that's hunkered down and getting hypothermia and dying. Like they are, because that happened to my rancher in town that I know, Jeff from Altai Meadows. He lost a calf being at a farmer's market. So his cows were birthing, and he had all of them counted except for one, but then the farmer's market came. And so he's trying to sell his beef, but he's also trying to be there for his cattle. And he was distraught at losing this. It's such a brutal job. And so then he ended up losing that calf. And it's just a day in the life. And it's like, well, we eat these animals. You can't care about something you eat. It's like, it's not the case at all. And if you saw the anguish on his face, it would really bring it home. Like, we need to invest in our ranchers. We need to invest in local infrastructure, local abattoirs and butchers. Like those big four companies, the JBS, Tyson, National Beef, and Cargill, are putting a strangle on ranchers. They don't make any money doing it. They all meat, all of it is a passion project from people who are retiring and are not being replaced. So that's a huge like vulnerability for the carnivore community. It's like, we need to go find your local rancher, invest in them, pay more than you want to pay, because if they're going to continue to do it next year, Jeff, he doesn't know if his kids are going to pick up the mantle behind him. It's like, again, it's been denigrated. It's like, we need to start shouting out these trades. If nothing else, ranching, at least from the carnivore community side, was like, we need to shout out ranchers. We need to know our ranchers. We need to be supporting them as much as humanly possible, because it is a thankless job and it gives us the health that we're enjoying.
Absolutely. I went and saw my farmer this week. One of my farmers. I get fat from a different farmer in St. John. And I went to him, and I went to leave, and I went to hug him because I hug him every time. And he goes, "Oh, no, 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 I'm dirty from working all day." And I said, "That dirt is from you taking care of the animals that saved me, that
Mhm.
heal me. Let me have a hug. I don't care. Give me that dirt." And I tell him every time I go that he is the richest man I know, that he is like royalty to me. And he just, kicks the dirt, kicks the gravel, and goes, "Well, I don't feel like it." And it breaks my heart, but at least I'm one voice saying,
Yeah.
are you are the literally like the most important person in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's life-giving. The meat, quality meat that they're raising saves lives, and they've been denigrated far too long. What did you think when you went out to Altai Meadows? Wasn't it like,
It
it
was
was it
beautiful.
was magical?
Yeah, we got to go really early in the morning. It was like 6 a.m. and we helped him move the cattle from one part of the land to the other. And they have such a beautiful property up there. And it was like sunrise, and there was the misty fog coming off the fields. And yeah, it was just amazing to see.
They were cute little cows, and
Yeah.
then the surrounding area too was like full of life. There were beavers and there's all kinds of things, because
Yeah, they had a lake.
the land hadn't been molested. So everything was
Mm,
fresh and green, and the cows were being rotated. So they weren't just trampling it down to mud. You know, he had done all of the hard work day in, day out for years and years. And you could really see it. Everything was just exploding with life.
And this is just our local farmer. It's not our supplier for the Carnivore Bar, but we hope to one day go and see our supplier's property as
Yeah,
well.
they do it on a bigger scale, but
Yeah,
it's
would be
like,
cool to see.
but we couldn't supply from Altai Meadows because of the volume. It's
yeah,
like, we need enough volume and we need a scale, and it needs to be the same flavor. But that's what's so interesting about your local rancher, is that from paddock to paddock, it's going to be a different flavor, a different experience, a different, nutrition, and the cows have personality, and what they eat, they're kind of like, they're so healthy, they're almost like dogs. I know that's weird to say, but they're
it's true.
playful.
Yeah,
And that's a little macabre thinking about eating them, but it's also, it's understanding the sacrifice that goes into what makes us able to live our lives and be healthy and be fully sentient. Because I suffer from mental health issues too, from the dysbiosis in Afghanistan, was another reason that the green vegetables, I got so sensitive to them. So like, you were struggling with symptoms of MS, and it's like I was struggling with dysphoria and PTSD is what they wanted to label me as. And it's like, no, it's not it's something else. It's something about my digestion. And you know, it allows me to be healthy, and it allows me to be present. And that's a big thing with us, is in a relationship, being present and being able to be fully there and communicative with one another. And I can't be without saturated animal fat. And so, it sucks that a lesser form of consciousness has to perish for that to blossom. But understanding that sacrifice makes life, and my life, all the more deeper and more meaningful, because it's like, don't waste it. Don't take it for granted. Get out there, make something of yourself, try to solve a problem and reduce the suffering of others, and that's what I'm trying to do with the Carnivore Bar.
Well, and Phillip, what would we have to offer society 5 years ago? I mean, I was a bump on a log. I was chocked full of psych meds. I was barely surviving, barely able to care for my own child. I was this shell of a human. And so
Right.
I wasn't giving back to society. And now I give back like tenfold. And you are with all of this, with the Carnivore Bar and just I'm sure with your life, with the circle of people around you. And so yes, it's a cow, yes, it's a life, but look how I have been able to take that energy from that cow and I've been able to multiply it so that
Exactly.
the masses can have a more quality of life.
Well, it's like a statement of faith too. It's like once you know all the sacrifice from the cow to the rancher to the supply chain, so all the effort that goes into your life, it's like, well, it's hard to take it for granted once you know. Once you know that it didn't just come out of a cellophane like little wrapper, it's like, oh man, this is a lot of responsibility. If I'm going to keep, breathing this clean air and eating this amazing food, like maybe I ought to be a better steward of my environment. Maybe I better be a better steward of the earth and the community, help out my neighbor, look where I could be of service instead of just being, like you said, a bump on the log. I was totally a bump on the log. I was cynical. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just wallowing after the army. I was like, gosh, I gotta make some changes or I'm gonna, or this is gonna end in tears. It's like I'm gonna be a stereotype, a drunk, homeless veteran. It's like
Who commits suicide?
yeah, it's like I gotta do something soon or I'm gonna not gonna make it. And so hopefully, the Carnivore Bar is of service to somebody, catches someone in travel or in a moment of need and makes them at least know that someone cares and someone is willing to make a food that could make a difference.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you so much for the service that you offer me and many others. And then also, I've really enjoyed just sharing this with other people, and then they get this discount whenever they use the code. I believe it's Emily 10. I
Yep.
think it's Emily 10. That they get a discount. And so if you're watching this and you go to is it thecarnivorebar.com?
It's just carnivorebar.com.
Carnivorebar.com.
Either one will take you
It'll take you
there.
there. Yeah.
So the idea with our discount structure is like we are going to raise our prices shortly. However, we're not changing our discount structure because we want to be a part of the community for the community. Things are going to get hard, and all the more reason to maintain these connections. So if you're a carnivore, there's not a new keto gadget or gizmo or sauce or flavoring you can add. You're eating just meat. So you're really limited in your affiliate marketing. So one of the things we wanted to do right off the bat is to be a subscription model. So to 15% off for subscriptions and then 10% off in addition for affiliates. So that means that it's 25% off, whatever the price ends up being, 25% off. And it gives a commission to the person. So you're supporting someone who is giving the message that you think most accurately represents the carnivore movement and the carnivore way of life and what you want to be. So if Emily is like inner clarity, center of brilliance, like this is my jam, it's like this is a way for you to support Emily in a renewing fashion. So just because you subscribe with her code once doesn't mean that we give her one commission. every single month, there's a commission that renews as long as you keep that code. And so that's a win for Emily. That's a win for us because we know how many bars of whatever flavor to make. And it's a win for you because you're getting 25% off of what it's a pretty expensive bar, but it's also life-saving. And you're supporting your favorite affiliate. And I think that is what we want to build, this sense of community and helping each other create these win-wins. As things get hard, we want to lift each other up and support each other in this community, in this network.
Absolutely. And I think that's, the hardest thing for me whenever I'm, talking to somebody or everything, and I'm like, the Carnivore Bar, and they're like, yeah, but it's so expensive. And I get this holy anger that comes over me, and I'm like, you don't know Phillip, you don't know Courtney. Like, and so that's why I was just like, okay, well, I have something that I can do to show them Phillip and to show them Courtney, because we've had these conversations behind closed doors. And I really wanted to have this conversation publicly, for people to see your brilliance, and to see what you guys are doing, and that this is a passion. This is not for you to get a yacht.
No, no, it's like we're still very much in the hole. But there's nowhere I'd rather be, because the people who this has made a difference for, people who have texture aversions to meat, people who are taking this into the hospital for pregnancy, people who, have no other option, or we have somebody a pilot who, is going to be in the air for an awful long time and doesn't want to eat the peanuts. So it's like, you find yourselves in these snafus, and you want to be able to rely on something. And no matter what the cost, for us, it is worth it, because for us, this is a lifeline to this healing modality that we've never found anything that is close. There's no pill, there's no program, there's no gadget that has been even remotely close to what eating meat, drinking water has done for us. And we want to provide that for people who aren't always in the ideal situation. It's like, you may not always be next to your air fryer, you may not always be access to a kitchen. It's like, for those times, we want to have your back. And it's okay if people don't understand that. And I think that I'd advocate for everyone, just have grace for them, and love them where they are, and say like, well, this is really useful for me in these 3 situations, but I totally understand if it's not for you. Like, nobody needs to buy carnivore bars. Everyone can make their own pemmican. It is just harder than you probably have thought out. And, but I would help you do it. There's a video on the Lion Diet of me making pemmican for free.
Yes, I saw that.
Go watch it. It's like, there's no gatekeeping here. Like, if it's helpful, great. If it's not, God be with you, no hard feelings.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you guys so much. And I do know that this has been a divine appointment, for us to have crossed paths years ago, and continue this journey together to help people. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.